All right, let's go to the global news space now and see what's happening there. Will is standing by. Will, yeah, so I know that the tariffs are back, yes, Will.
Definitely.
The tariffs are here in full force.
They're not going anywhere
President Donald
anytime
Trump
soon.
is not happy.
He's not happy with the countries.
So we see 50% on Canadian aluminium.
The question is,
that's how
do you
angry
respect
President Trump is.
Enough? Because he says, you're not respecting him enough.
Yeah.
You're not thankful enough. So I think right now, every country needs to pay the price for not being appreciative.
Let me just tell you that Ukraine has agreed to the deal, the peace deal. So please.
Oh, yes.
This is enough thankfulness.
This is enough thankfulness.
Yes.
Well, you know Ukraine doesn't have a choice here. So they have to agree to whatever Trump decides right now.
I don't think so. President Zelensky didn't sound that way.
He didn't sound that way, but he probably had his advisors
if America says country first, it is also Ukraine first. Everybody take care of your country.
Okay, but his advisors would have told him, look, you've got to take this deal because you know the person you're up against is a very strong person.
All right. I agree with you, Will.
So definitely, we just see what's happening in other markets. Definitely in the economy worldwide, we're seeing cloud software giant Salesforce says it will up its investment in Singapore over 5 years to drive digital transformation and AI adoption. CEO Mark Benoff highlighted Singapore's role as a key AI research hub with top engineers developing the company's Agentforce platform. Now, the AI tool aims to enhance workforce productivity amid demographic challenges. But you see that Singapore Economic Development Board welcomed the move, saying it as a boost to the country's AI innovation efforts. Now let's move on to Japan now, where we see major Japanese companies, including Toyota and Hitachi, have granted substantial wage increases for the third straight year to help workers manage inflation and address labor shortages. Policymakers have pushed for aggressive wage growth amid soaring food prices and record corporate profits. But the impact on consumer spending and the Bank of Japan, as the BOJ rate hikes, remain uncertain. Economists expect a 5 to 5.5% increase that's supporting the BOJ's gradual rate hikes, with the next one expected in June. However, if wage growth nears 6%, an earlier hike in May could be on the table. Now let's not go to South Korea and see that the Trade Minister, Chung In-kyo, will visit Washington. This is all about the trade tariffs now on March 13th, that's tomorrow, to discuss reciprocal tariffs and investment projects with U.S. officials. Seoul trade ministers announced this. Now, Chung aims to influence the U.S. administration's evaluation of South Korea ahead of President Trump's April trade policy report. It will also address Trump's claim that South Korea's tariffs are 4 times higher than those of the U.S., a figure Seoul disputes, citing a 0.79% effective tariff rate on U.S. imports. Now, we were talking earlier, the U.S. President Donald Trump announced a tariff hike on Canadian steel and aluminium from 25% to 50%. That was yesterday. He made that statement after Ontario imposed a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the U.S. Now, Trump warned of further penalties, including tariffs on agriculture and auto industries, and suggested Canada should become the 51st U.S. state to eliminate trade barriers. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, that was yesterday, who introduced the electricity tariff in response to Trump earlier trade actions, said he's ready to cut off power exports if tensions escalate further. Now, still on Trump, President Donald Trump, 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium imports came into effect. It's coming into effect today, that the EU said on Wednesday that it's going to have a counter tariff on that, and that's on 26 billion euro worth of U.S. goods starting in April in response to the duties that the U.S. has imposed. Now, the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said that the Trump move to impose the tariffs was entirely unjustified. Meanwhile, President Trump's 25% tariffs on the steel and aluminium imports are taking effect today. And this has prompted, the swift measures that we talked about from the EU. The EU has announced that 26 billion euro worth of tariffs. But we're seeing this move as something that the EU calls unjustified. And we're also seeing that President Trump has also reversed his earlier statement that he was going to, double the tariff on Canada from 25% to 50%. That reversal came about 6 hours after he made the statement. But still, discussions are on the table because the EU says they're open to negotiations. Canada, we don't know if they're backing down, but they're also open for negotiations. The White House trade advisor did talk about that the plans are no longer there to raise tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum imports. But we're going to see how that really impacts the Canadian economy and also, most especially, America's economy, the U.S. economy. And we're going to be talking to Maria Bird. She's our Washington correspondent right there. She's going to be giving us more insights. Good morning, Maria. It's good to have you on the program. Maria, a lot of things are really going on there, especially with Trump. We can't really tell what's happening with him right now, especially with the back and forth. When he imposes the tariffs and there's a counter tariffs, it gets upset and doubles the tariff and says and reverses it again. How do you assess the potential long-term economic impact of this trade dispute on both countries?
Yes, good morning. Yes, this is, I think, unprecedented for many Americans. This is definitely new territory for us to see these trade wars. Not that trade wars haven't happened in the past with previous administrations, but not to the extent of what we've seen, especially when you're talking about how early we are in this administration. We are not quite even 2 months into the Trump second administration. And so I think people are a bit concerned. We've seen a recession. Many Americans very vividly remember what the recession felt like. And I think that's where the concerns come in. But as you mentioned, the back and forth, I think, is very new. In one day, we go from 25% tariffs expectations to 50% and then back down. And so this is obviously having an impact on the stock market. Most importantly, right now, we're beginning to see some impacts on our retail sales and things like that, but very minimal at this time. But I think the concern is whether or not there will be major impacts, especially once we get to, as you mentioned earlier, that April benchmark of April 3rd.
So you mentioned the stock market and the retail sector. What other sectors of the U.S. economy are already feeling the pinch or the impact of these tariffs? Can you share with us?
Well, what we're kind of seeing is it looks as if home prices, and especially if you're trying to build a home, some of the materials that are needed to build homes, the concern is really around not only we obviously just came out of a period where we were anticipating or dealing with long time periods before you could get goods that travel globally, just as a result of kind of trying to get those production and those resellers back in play after COVID, and how to kind of restart the engine around shipments and getting things in a timely manner. So obviously that had an impact on us. But where we are now, we're seeing the minimal tariffs that have been put out, but the percentages of the tariffs, I think, are the greatest concern, because the percentages are really driving up the cost for what Americans are having to pay for some of these goods that are coming from overseas. And really, it's not enough time to have Americans being able to buy some of these things in America. And I think that's really going to be the question. And the president has stated that the long-term impact is that we should be able to see the driving down of costs because of more production right here at home.
Obviously, Americans right now, I can say they'll probably not be happy because they have to pay more for goods and services, as you mentioned. But I want to talk about Trump's statement yesterday. He said he's making plans, or he said he wants to make plans to make Canada the United States' 51st state. With the way Americans are feeling right now, how did they react to this statement?
Well, I don't think Americans really know what to do with that statement. I think that is very outside of what any American has thought about, Canada becoming a 51st state. And so I don't know if there's really a response there. I think that we know that there's a trade war going back and forth. We know that typically in these types of situations, there's a lot that's said back and forth. And the reality of it, I think many Americans have not really thought too much as to if that's even possible. And I think really Americans are trying to ensure that we are able to get to a place where we can settle and really focusing on the economy. Because again, I think many Americans are just really concerned about what the long-term impacts and really wanting to avoid a recession.
And the EU obviously is not backing out of this. They say we must act now, we must act against these tariffs that Trump is imposing on them. So do you think we're going to see more counter tariffs, counter measures coming up? And how far do you think this is going to go from what you've seen out there?
I think we are going to have a back and forth, but I think there's obviously a greater strategy with this. I think that this is really around getting people to the table to discuss trade. And I think that is ultimately, I think, where the administration is trying to go, is trying to revamp and relook at how the U.S. has been trading with other countries. And I think now the other countries are definitely being brought to the table. I think that they're wanting to be part of the discussion. I think that we are going to definitely see new trade relationships globally, especially as it relates to the U.S. and other countries. So I think that's really what this is going to begin to impact, is really waking up the trade partnerships, the way in which we've traded. And I think in a few months, or maybe it'll take a year, we will definitely see a difference in the way in which the U.S. trades across the globe.
Thank you so much, Maria Bird, the Channels TV correspondent right there in Washington. Thank you for joining us this morning. So, with what's going on right now, I'm actually just wondering what's going on in President Trump's head. It's more like you want to go in there and examine it and just know, is this a reality show? When you come out today and then you say something the next day and you reverse your statement. So it's more like, are you playing games with this country? Is this a trade war or a ping pong game, for them?
So Will, you need to remember that you're talking about President Donald Trump, President of the United States of America, and Americans voted him there for a reason.
Okay.
So he did campaign and he shared his vision. And I mean, this is his second term. So Americans know the kind of person that President Donald Trump is. And you heard Maria there say that she believes, so a lot of Americans believe that there's a game plan to this. So perhaps it's going to be a way to re-strategize and reconnect to new trade partners. Or he might just want to get the existing trade partners to re-examine their relationship. And I mean, saying something like Canada is going to become the 51st, a lot of people would know that Canada is an independent country. It would take a whole lot. Russia is trying or tried it with Ukraine, and we see Ukraine take their stance. Exactly. So I guess some of those things, as Maria said, is just a game or a strategy to get attention and
maybe to change the policy and the trade terms that they've had for a long time. Maybe it's not just happy
that's
with
what
it.
President Trump is trying to get, because I mean, he did make some promises before getting into office, and Americans voted for him.
Or is this what they were expecting? Is this how they expected it to play out?
Time will tell. You spoke to Maria that she's an American, so I don't know, Will. Well, thank you so much. See you at 1 p.m. All right, now just before we let you go on Business Morning, let's see how the market closed yesterday, back in the red territory after just one day of positive trade, down 0.43%. Almost 0.5%. I believe the loss was about 250 billion naira that was shaved off the market. And we saw a lot of negative with the major players. MTN moved the market. Well, perhaps an opportunity to, as an investor, go in there. But you don't know, you don't know when you would be getting your profit back. But I mean, you can see the top trades there, where obviously the financials, they led the market right there. But at intraday, Will Ibong will be back with Ladi. Ladi should be here by 1 p.m. during Business Incorporated, and they'll give you a combination of intraday numbers as well as other stories around the world of business. I'm Ini John McQuarrie. Go out there, make some money, especially if you're a woman. I'll see you at 10 p.m.